To understand why communication changes your reality, you need to stop thinking of communication as talking. Human beings are always communicating in at least 3 ways.
If you learn to communicate correctly with the universe, with yourself, and with other people, reality starts to move as if it finally belongs to you. Not because you forced anything, but because you removed the blocks that keep you separated from the life you keep asking for. Remember, everything is energy. Everything is vibration, meaning everything has a tone, a direction, a pattern. And you are a field living inside a larger field. When your personal field enters resonance with what life can answer, opportunities stop feeling random. Things don't become easy, they become available. And I'm not talking about magical thinking. I'm talking about something you can observe. Your results are never created by one thing. Your frequency, your signature, comes from the sum of 4 pillars: your beliefs, your emotions, your communication, and your actions. Each pillar carries its own weight. Together, they form what you keep broadcasting, on average, into the world. Today, we're working on the pillar people underestimate: communication. Because you can believe in abundance and still speak like scarcity. You can want love and still communicate fear. You can desire growth and still talk yourself into a smaller life, quietly, daily, convincingly. So imagine this. Picture the reality you always dreamed of. Maybe prosperity, maybe peace, maybe a relationship that feels safe, maybe the freedom to travel, to build, to learn, to help someone you love. Now imagine there's one thing between you and that reality, a heavy iron door. You can't open it by begging. You can't open it by wishing. You can't open it by anger. It opens with the correct key, and that key is your communication. Not just your words, your communication as a whole. Because the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way you look at life, the way you talk to yourself in the dark, all of it is a message. And a message with noise can't land cleanly. If your signal is distorted, the world receives distortion. If your signal is coherent, life answers coherence. So the question isn't, why isn't it working for me? The question is, what are you really communicating across your words? Your tone, your posture, and your private inner dialogue about what you believe you deserve. To understand why communication changes your reality, you need to stop thinking of communication as talking. Human beings are always communicating in at least 3 ways. First, interpersonal communication, your communication with other people. This is where most people focus, but even here, they focus on the wrong thing. They obsess over the words. Yet words are only a small fraction of the message. Tone, pacing, facial expression, body language, presence. These carry the deeper meaning. You can say, "I'm confident," while your body announces fear, and people will respond to the fear. Second, intrapersonal communication, your communication with yourself. This is the most constant conversation you will ever have, and it shapes everything. The phrases you repeat internally become the walls of your life. I can't. It's not for me. I always fail. That mental chatter becomes so loud you stop hearing your own essence, your real desires, your real wisdom. Then you wonder why you feel lost. You're not lost. You're just drowning in your own noise. Third, your communication with the field, the whole existence itself. Call it God. Call it the universe. Call it life. Is the greater system that you are inside of. This communication is subtle. It happens through trust or doubt, through patience or impatience, through coherence or contradiction. A noise in communication is any interference that distorts, blocks, or prevents a message from arriving clearly at its destination. External noise is obvious: distractions, environments, interruptions. But the most dangerous noise is internal, because it's invisible to untrained minds. limiting beliefs, shame, fear of judgment, and lack of inner clarity. And the tragedy is this: people swear they've tried everything. They write goals. They repeat affirmations. They pray. They visualize. And they say, "It doesn't work for me." But their signal is still full of interference. They ask for one thing and communicate the opposite all day long. If there's noise in your communication with people, you struggle to build doors that open. If there's noise in your communication with yourself, you can't even hear what you truly want. If there's noise in your communication with life, you keep sending mixed instructions. So tell me, where is the interference strongest? In how you speak to others, in how you speak to yourself, or in how you relate to the whole? Now, let's name the most common internal noise in interpersonal communication: incongruence. You say one thing, but your tone and body say another. And this matters because communication is not just language, it's alignment. Think of someone who says, "I believe I can get this job," while their shoulders are collapsed. Their voice trembles, their eye contact disappears. The sentence tries to announce confidence, but the body transmits insecurity. The true message is the deeper one. Not because the world is cruel, because the world is responsive. This is why just saying the right words doesn't work if your inner field is not prepared. Words without coherence become decoration. People can feel when you're performing. Life can feel when you're contradicting yourself. Then there's intrapersonal noise, the inner critic that never shuts up. Who do you think you are? Remember the last time. You'll mess it up. This isn't truth. It's programming. It's a loop. And when that loop dominates, it becomes your identity. You start defending your limitations like they're sacred facts. And then there's the most subtle noise of all. Noise in your communication with the field. It often shows up as doubt. Does this even work? Or impatience. Why hasn't it happened yet? Or a contradiction. You ask for abundance, then spend the day declaring lack. You ask for love, then spend the day vibrating fear of abandonment. You ask for peace, then rehearse chaos. When these three forms of noise exist at once, you create what we could call a short circuit. You're trying to tune into a clear station, but all you hear is static. Not because the station hates you, because your receiver is conflicted. Here's where the real work begins. You don't force life. You clean the signal. You become a clearer transmitter. And when your communication becomes clear across the three layers, others, self, and the whole, you stop living in contradiction. If you want a different reality, you can't keep speaking from a divided inner state and expect an undivided result. So be honest. What are you asking for? While still communicating that you don't believe it's possible? This is where the practical technique comes in. And it's simple. Align with the outcome you desire before you communicate. If you have an interview, you don't just prepare answers. You align internally with the experience you want to create. You imagine the conversation flowing. You imagine yourself present, clear, grounded. You imagine the interviewer interested, receptive, leaning in not as a fantasy, but as a rehearsal of coherence. Because when you align first, your tone changes, your body changes, your choices change. If you're going on a date, you don't walk in broadcasting. Please like me. You align with connection. You align with ease. You align with being yourself without forcing. And then your communication becomes clean. Not begging, not performing, not chasing, just present. Alignment isn't only mental. It includes how you dress, because you communicate through appearance. It includes presence, because most people are never in the now. They're trapped in the past or racing into the future. It includes body awareness, your hands, your posture, your breathing, your voice. A person biting their nails while speaking about leadership is sending a message the words cannot erase. So the technique is a discipline of coherence, internal alignment, embodied alignment, and then communication. When you do that, you reduce noise. You stop sending a mixed signal. And here's the line that separates spectators from practitioners. If you only want comfort and refuse the inner work, don't follow Inside Out. This isn't entertainment for people who want to stay the same. This is a mirror. Because the field answers what you consistently are, not what you occasionally wish. And consistency is built through alignment, not through performance. Now we reach the deepest point. Words are not merely sounds. Words are carriers. They carry belief. They carry emotion. They carry identity. That's why two people can say the same sentence and create different effects. One is speaking from an aligned soul. The other is repeating language while vibrating disbelief. There's an old phrase you've heard in movies, abracadabra. People treat it like a joke, like a magician's prop. But in many traditions, it's connected to a blunt idea. I create as I speak. Whether you take that historically or symbolically, the psychological truth remains. Your repeated speech shapes your repeated reality. When you say, "I'm always late," you're not just describing a pattern, you're reinforcing it. When you say, "I don't have money," you may be reporting, but you're also stamping scarcity into your identity. And identity shapes behavior. Behavior shapes outcomes. Outcomes become proof. Then the loop hardens. This is why contradiction is so destructive. You can pray for prosperity and spend the day declaring the world impossible. You can ask for love and spend the day talking to yourself like you're unworthy. That's a tug of war in your signal. There's a line in the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word. Whatever you believe about religion, the idea is profound. Creation begins with declaration. First the Word, then the world. On the personal level, the sequence is similar. First, you consistently communicate from a coherent inner state. Then your life reorganizes around the behaviors, choices, and opportunities that coherence makes possible. So the final question isn't, do words have power? The question is, what power are your words serving? Because if your reality becomes the echo of what you most often declare out loud and in silence, are you building the life you want or rehearsing the life you fear?